Thanks, Anita, and welcome to our Regional Career Practitioners CEAB webinar that's being run by VTAC Schools Liaison team this afternoon. A quick reminder that we do have a little bit of lag time in some of our microphones, and you'll see that occasionally they will go red and you may hear a bit of clicking on the line. Please be patient and you'll regain connectivity once the line is clear. But often this will happen as a result of many people jumping onto the internet all at once late in the afternoon. The recording session, however, should be clear and you'll be able to pick up on anything that you may have missed because of the lag time. Again, the chat room feature is there for you to ask your questions, and we would ask that you write down any questions you might have and wait for the question time to be called before you put your hand up to ask a question. So without further ado, I would ask Adrian Blades, Schools Liaison Coordinator from VTAC, to take over the microphone and begin his briefing session. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Bernadette. First of all, smiley faces, so I know that my message is coming across loud and clear. That's fantastic. Just to follow up on Bernadette's comment about the recording today, we will have the PowerPoint presentation on the Careers Practitioners website by the end of the week, so you'll be able to see the information we're covering today. So we're going to be covering, it's going to be broken up into sections, the presentation today. So course information, we've got some really exciting initiatives in this area, and so we're looking forward to explaining those and using the new technologies in those areas. We're going to be covering a brief overview of the application and CourseLink. Again, there are some features on CourseLink that some of you may not be familiar with, and there's one or two things we've added for this year's process. Special Entry Access Scheme, Tazia will go into that. We're really encouraging early preparation. A couple of the early webinars, if you go back to the CAV site or the VTAC website, you'll be able to see some information we've already provided this year about CEAS. We're certainly this year focusing on the quality of CEAS. Scholarships, we're going to talk about the process, and there will also be a section on the results and ATAR release, and we'll cover off the offer process for students at the end of the year and explain negotiated offers and supplementary offers. There will also be a little section at the end about the statistics from last year. So this year we've got information on how to access course information. So what students can do this year is they can download complete course entries. This will be available as we've communicated to the careers practitioner community in the last couple of weeks, in the week beginning on the 29th of July. So students will be able to download their course entries, and they can choose to print or save to use online on a device, on a smartphone, iPhone, Android. They can use the QR code in the printed guide. So when you receive your printed VTAC guides next week as part of the distribution, you'll see these grids. That is what you call a quick response code. Students can download a quick response code on their phones, and I'll be covering that in a later slide. Another initiative we're very much excited about this year is students are going to have the ability to shortlist courses from Course Search, and they can email that list. I will cover that in more detail also. So I mentioned in the previous slide that students have a choice to download onto a smart device for use offline and by printing the course information as a PDF. If they're using it online, what they will need to do is keep up to date with any amendments. So that will obviously be a static file at the time that they can download, and they can keep up to date by checking out the VTAC website or logging onto our blog and checking the amendments page via our home page. So if they want to print the VTAC guide, they can go to the publications link at the bottom of the VTAC homepage as has been highlighted in that graphic. They can open the relevant section that they wish to print, and go into that, print that section there. So if they've got that publication, they can print the front section of the guide, for example, if they're interested in information on enrolment and deferment and certain institutional policies. There are also a variety of ways of printing the PDF. So students can download the print via the icon there, as you can see in the arrow. They can also open with a different viewer, and they can open up, for example, the course indexes we've used in this example, and open with Acrobat, or they can actually choose to save the file also. So in terms of the printing through the smartphone device, there are a range of options in that area. Quick response codes. Hands up to people who know what a quick response code is. Thank you, Suzanne and others, and everyone who put their hand up there. I must admit, since we've actually looked at the QR code for VTAC and used it for our VTAC guide, I do notice it now in a lot of places. So it's a type of two-dimensional barcode. It can be scanned. It's linked directly to a website. So, for example, Deakin University, if a student wants to download all of the courses and institutional information for Deakin University, they can download a free app either on their Android phone or iPhone, and they can then will be able to download all of the information for that particular institution. When you see your VTAC guides next week, you'll notice that the front sections, the policy sections of the VTAC guide do have a quick response code, and also each institution in the VTAC guide has its own quick response code also. So again, these are more demonstrations, or is actually a step-by-step breakdown on how to use the quick response code to download information once the student has downloaded the app onto their smartphone or iPhone. So you will see here a sample of a quick response code there for Deakin University. They would hold the device over the institution's quick response code, and all of the information associated with that institution will be downloaded onto their phone via the quick response code. This is something that we're also quite excited about at VTAC. So we're currently working on the course search program for this year. Students, for the first time this year, will be able to create a short list of courses. They can send it through to themselves via email, their parents if they're working closely with their parents, or their teachers. So if you're working closely with the student can go in and download a short list of courses that they're interested in doing. And then they can email that to you as a counsellor, and you can go through that with them. You can work on whether those courses are fitting with the student's program and so forth. So it gives the student a chance to almost, in a sense, have a little bit of a practice run in terms of their preferences. They'll have a list of courses that they're interested in, and they can shortlist that from there. And it gives them something to work with, a bit of a platform, and also a chance to work with their parents and their counsellors. This year, VTAC is moving to 10-digit course codes. So literally we were running out of the 5-digit course codes. Now, you can't use last year's course codes as a guide. These are new course codes. As you'll see there, the first 3 digits are the institutional code. In this case, the example is Deakin University. Next 2 digits are the code for the campus, as a number of institutions have more than one campus. And the remaining 5 digits are the course code. A key number is the number at the end, which is the fee type. So fee type 1 for higher education courses there is a Commonwealth supported place. And if it ends in a 2, it's going to be domestic fee paying place. Again, type 3 is an international fee paying place. And the next, let's be into going to type 4, which is a VET course code. So this year, for the first time, all VET course codes will end in 4. It stands for fee type determined by provider. This is a change from previous years. However, I'd like to emphasise the key message. Year 12 students will be eligible for a government subsidised place in a VET course if they meet the residency requirements and they're under 20 on the 1st of January 2014. So while they will have a type 4 on their preference list, if they're in year 12 and they're under 20 by the 1st of January next year, they will be eligible for a government subsidised place. I will now hand back to Bernadette and see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Adrian. There's some really important information there, so I would ask if you have a question of Adrian for this first section, where he covered a brief overview of the new features for VTAC. If you've got any questions, please put your hand up and we'll take them in hand order. Thank you. If you'd like to put your question in the chat room, we're happy to take written questions as well. Great, we've got one hand up, and I'll just check to see who it is, and it's Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne, if you'd like to take the microphone. Okay, it looks as though she's hit the button, but she hasn't got a microphone. Okay, that's fine, Suzanne. If you'd like to type something in the chat room window, not a problem. Right, thanks, Adrian. We might move to the next section then, and our second speaker is going to cover scholarships, the application process, and then we'll follow through with some information on scholarships and so on. Thank you, Adrian.
The next section I'm going to cover is the application process and overview. I'm then going to hand over to Tassie to discuss the CEASE program for this year and the processes there. So we open 5th of August at 9 AM. All students, all applicants register first as a VTAC user with the VTAC user account. For the students in year 12, their VCAA number should be the same, it will be the same as their VTAC number if they've registered. At the briefings, we will be covering some of the reasons why students may not be able to register. It could be to do with incorrect data that they've updated on VAS, but we will be discussing the process in more depth at the briefing sessions. So once the user account is activated, any applicant can prepare and submit a course application. So they'll get up to 12 preferences in order to do so. From 9 AM on the 5th of August until the close of change of preference in late October, all applicants can change preferences as often as they wish to. You'll see on the right-hand side that scholarships is now available. So scholarships is available for all applicants. The reason the registration process was introduced through VTAC a few years ago is that the scholarships process is available to non-VTAC course applicants. For a CEASE application to become available on the VTAC user account, at least one course preference has to be submitted. CEASE will not become available and active until a course preference has been submitted. An important note in terms of the course application process down the bottom, we have 14 institutions which publish their courses through VTAC that accept direct applications. We've covered the course codes in the previous slides. You'll notice in the VTAC guide that these institutions will have direct institution and they will not be a course code. These institutions which accept direct applications are all independent tertiary colleges and will manage the application and offer process on their own independently of VTAC. VTAC processing fees. Applicants this year don't need a PayPal account. They can pay through PayPal as a guest. That's another initiative we've introduced for this year. While we encourage students to pay at the time of application, it's not mandatory. They have until the closing date to pay. So that is the 23rd of December. If they don't pay for their VTAC processing fee, the application won't be processed or they will not be eligible for an offer. So the processing fees are based on the time of application. So if a student applies for courses before the 27th of September, the fee is $27. If they pay after the 27th of September and before the 8th of November, it's $91. And in the last 4 weeks, if they apply for the first time, it's $116. So the actual fee that is, we often get this question each year, the actual fee that is payable by the student is the fee based on the timing of when they apply. So if they apply before the 27th of September, their fee is $27. Course link. Now earlier in the year in our first webinar, we talked a lot about the student access course link. How many, could the teachers here today put their hand up if they're familiar with or they use student access course link? So there are two levels of access for course link. Thank you to those who've put up their hand. So teacher access is password protected, provides you with the opportunity to view student data. Now the updated student data for 2013-14 cohort was live on the first day back from school holidays on Monday. Student data contains the student details, a list of all your students which you can filter. VTAC study program, units 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The status of their application, whether they've applied through VTAC or not, their course preferences, the ATAR calculation when it's available in December. There is also a school data section that actually gives you a summary of your schools, of everything your students have done through VTAC this year. There's also archive data as well, which now goes back 6 years as well. School data will contain the tertiary enrolment files from the 2012-13 cohort, so you can actually go in there now and check on what happened in terms of the enrolment status for those students. So here is a breakdown of the screen for student data. So you'll notice that you can click to download the file at any time into an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV file. You can filter it however you wish. If we do have many questions regarding that, we will actually provide this information on the Careers Professionals blog. Careers Professionals blog is a way for you to keep up to date with what's happening with VTAC. So you can, all you need to do is go to the VTAC Schools blog. It will be on the last slide of this presentation. Put in your email address and any article we publish gets cross-posted into your inbox. So you'll notice on the left-hand side that the surnames are linked. So what you can do then is you can click on the surname on that link and you can then go to the student's individual page. So you can see here on the list, you can sort the list by however you wish. Surname is obviously the most common. And you can also see here in the middle there, restricted. You can restrict it to all students. So you can restrict it to all students, year 11, year 12, or if you have IB students, you can actually filter by IB as well. So you've now clicked on a student's name. This is what you'll get on the next screen. I did want to advise you of another initiative going back onto the previous slide. So I'll just go back one for a second. This year there will be on the right hand side of offered, this year a prerequisite filter will be there. If the student meets the prerequisites, the study prerequisites for any course they apply for, if they meet all of them, that prerequisite will have a Y next to it in that field. If there's one preference, at least one preference that they do not meet the prerequisite for, it will say indicate an N. So going back here to the individual student screen. So as you'll see at the top here, you'll see the student's personal details. You'll be able to see their student number, their enrollment status, date of birth. This is where you can also check if a student is having trouble registering. It could be, most commonly, it is the issue to do with the date of birth. You'll see here the expansion tabs under their personal details as well. You'll see here you'll have 2014 course application, Y or N. A really good one if you want to follow up on payment, Y or N. So you'll be able to check which students have actually paid their processing fees. You'll see below the personal details there is a study program, ATAR calculation, course preferences and offers with an expansion tab next to them. Study program, thank you for the highlighting. Study program and ATAR calculation for Victorian students and schools. That will be covered in the next slide. The other thing that's a really good resource for you, hasn't been often used, is the notes section. So if you're counselling a student, you can keep a record of the conversations and what you've actually advised them. So if a student has a question for you, you can go back and actually check that. That's a permanent record that you can have at your end for counselling purposes. So at this stage, we've expanded the course preferences and offers tab. In this case, you'll see the preferences and the course codes that the student has actually applied for. You can also see that they're linked. So if you want to see the course, it will, when Course Search opens, you'll be able to link to the Course Search program. The other really good resource as well down the bottom, if we can highlight that, is change of preference history. Each time a student goes in and changes their preferences, it's date and time stamped. So you can, again, if a student is saying I didn't do this or I didn't do that, you can go in there and see when they actually updated their preferences. After the use, so what we've got here again is again the student's personal details down the bottom. But what you've got there, what we've done here is you've clicked the expansion tab for study program. This is an abbreviated version of this slide, but you can see here the student study program, units 1 through 4, and the years in which they have completed those, the years in which those studies were completed. Again, you can see here we've separated the screen here as well, just so you could see the preferences. You'll be able to see a really good function as well that we have introduced in the last few years is from Friday the 9th of August, the end of the week that we have opened, preferences will be updated on CourseLink daily early in the morning. So after 10 o'clock each morning, you will be able to go in and see an updated change of preference file for the student data screen. And for which students have submitted those preferences, you can check the individual details. Something we introduced a couple of years ago is the ATAR calculation. So you'll be able to see now from the when we released the ATAR in December, the student a breakdown of which studies and how they contributed to the ATAR result. You can see here you've got the ATAR subject scores, and now will be known as scaled scores, how they add up and how they become the aggregate, which then becomes the ATAR. You can see which course studies, which subjects have been included in the primary 4. You can also see which studies have been included as increments in that calculation. So that will be available to you from the when we release the ATAR in December. I'm now going to hand over to Tassie for the next part of the presentation. I will be answering any questions in the chat room. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Adrian. I'm just going to go over a few points in relation to CEAS. I guess most of you know what CEAS is. So the CEAS program allows selection officers to grant special consideration to students who have experienced educational disadvantage. However, it does not exempt students from meeting course entry requirements. Consideration of these circumstances may be given to performance slightly below the stated minimum study score for a prerequisite, but does not exempt the student from having to complete the study. So they must complete all prerequisites. Students are still required to complete any stated extra requirements for a course, such as attending interviews, sitting tests, submitting folios or forms, etc. We can't stress enough that students who have suffered long-term disadvantage should start organising their supporting documentation now. They don't need to wait for CEAS applications to open to make appointments with health professionals or collect, but they're also able to collect supporting statements early. Leaving it until August, September may result in the student not being able to submit their statement of support by the closing date, which is the 8th of October. As we know, medical specialists have very busy schedules, so early appointments are better. It's important medical practitioners include on the supporting statement the testing, diagnosis and prognosis. Timeframes are also critical to provide context for the impact. Was the impact 2 weeks or 6 months or 3 years? Has it varied? If so, how? The evidence submitted together and how the condition has impacted their education potential are key to submitting a successful CEAS application. Everyone is encouraged to answer yes to Category 1, personal information location, on the CEAS application
We encourage all applicants to complete this category because it may pick up something on their applications that students have included that the selection officers may look at and think, yes, you know, this applicant is eligible for some special consideration. In regards to Category 1, students are not required to answer any additional questions or provide supporting documentation for this category. Moving on to the next slide. So there are 6 fees categories. I'll just go through them briefly. Category 1, personal information and location. This is designed for applicants who wish to be considered for all circumstances that can be based upon information already provided in the course application. As I've previously mentioned, this will cover age, recognition as an Indigenous Australian, home or school postcode, underrepresented school, gender, males or females in underrepresented disciplines.